Today, you all did job. Congratulations. This is ChillPoint.
Yeah, I did job today.
Yay!
Beach, did you do job today?
Not yet. I barely woke up.
Beach is starting to do job today.
Yeah.
How about Paul?
Yep. I've been jobbing today.
Yeah, okay.
Doing some job.
Yeah.
Job's done.
Suck.
How's it going, everybody?
That came from a very deep place. Holy shit.
Little Warcraft 2
Wow, that was like
action.
I didn't think you'd even played those.
just an immediate, just a limbic response. The orc brain, the lizard brain kicking in.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to ChillPoint, show where we talk about video game news of the week, as well as the episode of Checkpoint that just went up yesterday, which if you haven't seen already, you should go look at it, but not right now because you're watching this.
I don't know. If you're on YouTube, you could pause this and go watch that and then come back. But if you're watching this on Twitch, you shouldn't do any of that.
Play them both at the same time and see where they overlap.
Oh, no.
Why did I want to say Night of the New Moon? That doesn't make any sense at all.
Dark
Side of the Moon.
Dark Side of the Moon, where the ChillPoint is like the soundtrack to Checkpoint.
Yeah, they line up at certain points. If you play Checkpoint at 0.25 speed, by the time we get through each story, it generally starts to line up. Yeah.
On Checkpoint stories, we talked about multiverses.
Oh yeah, the big one. Boy, wasn't that funny.
Multiverses being in beta, and now stopping so that they can, I guess, prepare for their actual release.
Yep.
You know, I was getting the graphics for that story, and I went all through, looking for
any sign,
multiverses logos and stuff. I did not see any multiverse, and then with little beta tag.
Yeah, usually there's like a
pre-release tag, like a little tag.
Early access. Pardon me, my goodness.
Yeah, But beyond that, even if you found out it's in beta, and you're like, well, okay, fine, but I've been having fun with it. Most games I've ever seen that do the whole, we're doing beta, unless they're doing we're doing an open beta test, so it's only for like these couple of weeks because it's like an online shooter or something. Generally when they're like, this game's in beta, there's like a day where they're like, hey, the game's not in beta anymore, but like,
yeah, they don't go beta,
there's a release,
go away for 6 months,
and then come back. Like, that's not something I've seen.
Yeah.
Surprise beta is one thing, but surprise beta, we're going away for a while, is weird.
Also, when I was looking through their Twitter account, the thing that's pinned, or the message that was pinned at the top of their Twitter account, I don't know if it's still there, is the announcement of Season 2 of Multiverses, which started a couple months ago. So,
holy shit.
Wow.
Oh.
No, that's just weird.
You have seasons in your beta, apparently.
Yeah. Why are there seasons?
The conversation behind the scenes at, I'm assuming, Player First Games. I'm assuming, or maybe Warner Bros. Has been doing, wide-on screw-ups these days and, all sorts of, media stuff. You can argue from all sorts of different angles. I'm I don't know if they're the ones who would have came forward and hey, can you just take this game down because we're not making enough money on it and just say it was beta or something? I'm sure nobody at Warner Brother Games is thinking that. But Player First might have been we're having a conversation about what do we do now? How do we fight the fact that we have nobody playing this goddamn game?
Usually when a game is in beta, they won't shut up about how it's in beta, so that if something goes wrong, they can be like, "Well, it is in beta."
Yeah, don't worry about that.
Yeah, I just went and checked the pinned tweet from November 15th, 2022. Welcome to Season 2, MVPs. That's they call the players
Multi-versus players.
Multi-versus players.
That's
Oh
good,
yeah, that
yeah.
makes sense.
Welcome to season 2. Check out the new store while you stop by #multiverses.
That's just it's just sickening.
I love that's the pinned tweet. The next tweet under it is MVPs. As of now, Multiverses is no longer downloadable for new players. It has been temporarily removed from storefronts along with Glemium, which is the currency.
Oh, good. Thank
Yeah,
you.
because there's
could've-
microtransactions and stuff in this game too.
Could have been anything.
Why not? Maybe you should pin. Maybe the announcement of it shutting down for 6 months should be the pinned tweet.
You wouldn't want to give people the wrong idea, though, that you shut your game down and it's never coming back.
But that happens with live service games all the time. Mm-hmm. They just tell people they're shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I was gonna like from what I can gather, it people have really enjoyed playing it. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously the concurrent player count has kind of gone down, so
Absolutely.
that's not great.
Yeah.
But people seem to be having fun playing it. I mean, judging by the number of people angry that it's going away, and who are saying that they spent there's some like there's like $100 like big season pass there's some sort of
Packs of...
there's some sort of $100 thing that everyone was complaining about having bought. So I guess there was some sort of pack that they were selling.
Was the game free to play in the first place?
Yeah, it's a free to play game.
Okay. So, I mean, it's probably not one of those things where it's like, it's probably not one of those things where it was like, hey, a million people spent $100 on the game. It might be more that the hardcore people who have spent $100 on the game are like, I'm hanging in there. It's hard to tell when a fighting game would achieve a critical mass enough to support the continued making of that game. Like, I have no idea how many people play. I was going to say Blaze Blue. That's not right. There's another one out there that's even more esoteric. Just really like start naming them off in the chat, and I'll read it off when I see it. But that kind of idea. It's
fighting games.
Yeah, the ones that have all the colons and slashes in the titles. There's always these really wild fighting games that are like, I think there's only 8 people worldwide who ever play it, and somehow the game keeps like releasing new versions every 6 months, and it's like, okay, like maybe this was this was going to end up being one of those things where it's like it's a niche fighting title despite the fact that it's got all of these characters from all these properties in it,
I mean, this was the fighting game that was being touted as like, oh, this will be the thing that like takes out Smash.
Yeah.
Because of like we've had a number of Smash like
crossover brawling
games over the last couple of years, and Multiverses was the one that everyone was actually excited enough about that might have worked out.
Yeah, it definitely had some good buzz on it.
The Fortnite of brawling games.
But let's not forget, if you I don't know, bought that $100 pack or whatever it is the day before this announcement, earlier even, you can't get refunded.
Nope.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But good news, it will still you're not going to lose all your stuff after when it comes back in 6 months, because it definitely will.
Didn't they just say 2024?
I thought they actually gave us a timeline, like they said June or something like that.
Did they give a month
or maybe it actually will be like January. There, Under Night in Birth. That's probably what I was thinking of. In Birth.
We are targeting early 2024.
Let's just say January to give them the best
so,
benefit of the doubt. That's still
first half.
It's still 8 months away. Yeah.
It's just a weird.
Do you think now? I'm curious actually. Like, do you think for a game like this, and even for like Smash, do you think the problem with the problem that they're having in Multiverses with not enough people playing is the solution adding more characters, right? Like, is the thing that is it like I don't want to play this game because it doesn't have the guy that I want to play in it.
I mean, if that's the case, you might end up waiting a while to get the guy that you might think would be the thing to make you play it.
I don't think that's how that works. I think if you add a new character that can renew a casual player into coming in and wanting to see what the character's like.
Yeah, see the new style.
if you're talking like people like these are kind of those games where it's like you go over and everyone's like, what do you want to play? We're gonna play this. Except for what I understand, I don't think these have. Does Multiverses have local co-op? I thought it was all online.
Does not have local.
Yeah, so if it had local co-op, that might have helped.
Right.
It all being online suggests it wants to be like other fighting games that are all online based. In which case you're getting
it has rollback netcode.
In which case you're getting people who like
really
the
big
players
on
who are going to
telling
stay
people
at that point are more of your hardcore audience of fighting game players. If your thing goes offline for 6 months to whatever, and now those people can't put in playtime in order to keep their skills up, they're just going to go to a different fighting game.
Right.
Like
Until there's a relaunch, and then they might be like, there's a massive relaunch. And it's like, I remember the first version of that game being really good. And it's like, well, it's still the same version of the game. But they might.
But will you trust a game that said it was out and then it's not?
I mean, if it's still free to play, you might just go back to see what changed. Because if you're a fighting game enthusiast, you kind of are always looking for the new wrinkle. So you might go back to see, like, did they make any major changes? And then they have that surge of interest again, and it falls off again, and then.
I mean, like people have said that they are trying to do the Final Fantasy 14 kind of reboot, rebrand, or not, or the sort of reboot, whatever. But I mean, that's a tough road. I think Final Fantasy 14 is literally the only game that it's ever done.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are others, but there aren't a lot. That was a very impressive combination of marketing, business savvy, and actually improving their game.
And I
No Man's Sky kind of pulled that off too.
True, yeah. I think you're right, though. Like, while I'm arguing like a more niche point, I think you're right. That I think most people be like, I'll remember. I don't want to go through this again, that kind of thing. I think you're probably right.
I just like if you put a lot of time into a fighting game that potentially might just go offline on you, and you recall the feeling of that, then why are you spending your time doing that when you could be putting your skills into other stuff that you're trying to do? Why would you put money into it if it potentially just goes away? Now, maybe it comes out, it's even better, it has more marketing done to it. Someone in the chat said it was at AVO 2022, so that's, to me, that's a little weird that it hit main stage there and its numbers dwindled so hard. But
like, it's interesting because theoretically this means that the company has decided that, or has determined that, just leaving the game as it is for 6 months while they're working on the non-beta version.
Yeah.
So just leaving it like it is for 6 months will do more damage to the brand than it just be going away. Like, just leaving it as it is, I guess the idea is that people will continue leaving or continue, dropping off and not playing. And, if they aren't updating, then all the bugs and stuff will get, people will start getting more and more annoyed with it and getting frustrated that it isn't being updated. And it'll get more and more bad, sort of, or people will forget about it and whatever.
Right.
Whereas this way, I guess the hope is that they can kind of triumphantly return.
Right.
And then if they get enough press with it returning, that people will want to check it out, you'll get that new wave of people.
And then maybe it makes it stick that time.
I don't know. I think that's definitely a decision. That's probably a conversation they actually had.
Oh yeah,
and,
I'm sure this was not an easy choice.
They had to weigh those options.
But
I do think it is potentially a high risk though.
It was a huge risk.
That you could come back out like a wet fart. Like, it just...
And especially because, like, up until this point, like we'd said, nobody has any memory of this being touted as a beta. Like, the game came... We were hearing about the game. There was people playing, like, demo versions of the game, and then all of a sudden the game seemed to just come out, and people were just playing it, and stuff was getting added to it.
And it's entirely possible that, it was said to be a beta.
Yeah.
Or they said, you know, in the sort of messaging, they said, you know, we're testing this, but unless you're continually reiterating that,
Yeah.
once you start announcing your season 2,
Yeah.
people will have assumed that it's like, oh, I must have just missed the announcement of it coming out of beta.
Yeah.
Because obviously they wouldn't have season 2 while in beta. That would be just ridiculous.
Yeah, why would you do anything like that?
Now we're operating under the assumption that what they have said is true, that they're shutting down and that they will come back in early 2024. There are people who suggest that they're doing this so that they can shut down quietly. If it doesn't end up coming back, those people are going to say that they're right, but like things happen even after you shut down. Like something could go sideways.
You know, I can.
How long do you think is if they don't come back in early 2024? How long do you think they have before they is that already losing too much interest, or like is there a period in 2024 where if they don't come back, they'll have no hope of gaining that audience back?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it depends on how they set it up, but I mean, I think over the next while until 2024, at least, I feel like anybody who is actually interested in playing multiverses again should probably be keeping an eye on the fortunes of what's the name of the company?
Player First.
Player First.
Yeah.
I
feel like
weird name for a company when it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah. I can imagine that we're going to hear in 3 months that Player First has been disbanded.
Yeah.
If I don't know if they've got other projects that they're working on.
Or Warner Brothers will say we have canceled the game, and then therefore they're now moving on to do something else.
Yeah. Or it's going to be taken over by some other thing, and then it sort of goes through a series. So
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, they've got the IPs. Maybe they can do something with it still. Wow. Project Media would agree to the EULA. There was an error loading the content of this EULA. So that's good. It's a good sign.
They should fix that one first.
Giant Donkey Kong.
He sure is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Arcade cabinet.
Yeah.
It's such a large arcade cabinet.
Yeah, and I love the fact that they didn't go to the because I say that hey, they chopped off the bottom of it. Yeah. But it's still 6 meters tall. Like, it's massive. Of course you wouldn't need the bottom. And it looks like a tabletop version, right? Which is kind of fun in its own way.
But without that bottom portion, they can't make you take
where do you put the
giant
quarters? Yeah. It's I think it's really cool that they did this. The idea, so the Strong Museum is doing a 90,000 square foot expansion to their museum. And the museum is based around play. The whole idea of the museum is to collect and focus their exhibits on the nature of play. So this is meant to be a showpiece that in the expansion, you could stand, you'll be able to play it, and it will be in a location where people will be able to watch you playing it, obviously from quite a distance. Ars Technica did a bit of a deep dive. It's a weird thing to say, a bit of a deep dive. They did scrape below the surface of they're building a cabinet to be like, how are they going to make this cabinet work? And it's, by and large, it's like, take the original Nintendo board, you get a Nintendo to JAMA adapter, and then you get a specific, I guess they're just using like the normal kind of super gun, which is the video adapter that you would use to put stuff onto a CRT, except they're not using a CRT, they're using LED panels. It's not just an LED TV, it's like we're building like an LED panel kind of thing that they can have, so you'll be able to see the game being played on it.
I really hope that the buttons on the thing also, like there's the little front controller for convenience.
Yes.
But I hope that the buttons on the big thing could also work. Like if you want to play it like this.
Yeah, me too. Because the dude standing there, if that person is like of average height, of 5'10" or something, if they walked up to that cabinet, they'd be able to reach everything, and it
would just be really awkward.
Yeah, and and Donkey Kong only has a 4-way joystick and a jump button. Like it's not like that. You can kind of bishy-bashy your way through this because it's like you're not playing Street Fighter. But yeah, it's very cool, and that also means that since they built this thing, that means they could always convert it back into a radar scope cabinet.
I was actually on.
Should have dropped that joke in the story, but that's fine.
In Tinker Tailor Soldier Fry last night, I was for some reason Ian and I were talking about he had one of these little ESP32 boards.
Yeah.
That unfortunately had a manufacturing defect, and two of the power modules were reversed, so like they had to be desoldered and resoldered the other way.
God.
And so the company who he got them from like sent him an email that was like, "Hey, you need to do this."
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is, of course, there's surface mount components, so they're very, very teeny weeny.
Yeah.
We were talking about this idea of like somebody should make. I want like a big, like novelty size microcontroller, like an ESP 8022, or
the
an
size of a pizza
or
box.
an Arduino, like the size of a pizza box on like 1/4-inch MDF for the circuit board.
Yeah, yeah.
I just think that would be really funny. And you have enough of that stuff, and you could build one of these arcade cabinets.
Absolutely,
all the components inside the arcade cabinet should be scaled up appropriately too.
You could probably, in that case, if you're going to scale things up that big, you could probably make all of the logic gates yourself and everything else on board the ICs, because you'd be able to run like actual wires to do it. So yeah.
Anyway,
it's pretty cool. I think
it's a neat idea.
Yeah. Maybe they'll make more of an arcade there too. Be other games you can play.
I'm always in favor of making hilariously large versions of things.
Christ, I wonder how loud it's going to be.
Arcades don't make money anymore, but a museum with a giant arcade might be able to.
Yeah, you have to pay money, I think, to get in as well. So there you go. You've already paid your money to get in, and now it's free play. So you get to, play for as long as you're there.
Having like a little thing there, like it's free play,
yeah.
but having like a little thing there with a giant quarter that you could like roll into
clunk,
would be awesome.
Yeah, Two-Face can finally play games.
If you had to scale that up then, so if they scaled it up 370 times, that means the quarter would be about 3 times the size it normally is, so probably that big. Which isn't that bad,
It's
right?
not that bad, yeah.
So you'd have you could give people sets of quarters and they could roll them into the thing, and yeah, that would be fun.
The next story we're talking about on ChillPoint was about this very odd Nintendo in Russia thing going on.
God, yes.
Where this company, Akiva, which apparently is achievement in Russian, which I didn't show the logo of that company because, as far as I could tell, they have no logo. Their website doesn't there's on the little tag. There's like a website that was whatever, ak4iva.ru.
Yeah.
Which I went to. It does not load.
Oh.
So, which doesn't necessarily mean that they don't exist as a company, or that email address that they provide for support, which is like ninja at doesn't work. You can have email without a website, but still, I'm guessing that because it's just the point of the company is not to sort of market itself. In fact, they're probably trying to stay under the radar a little bit.
That didn't work.
Didn't work out too well. But yeah, I did not know that this rule that was brought into when all these companies started boycotting.
You hadn't heard of that.
Russia. I hadn't heard the rule that the Russian government was just like, yeah, we don't care about copyright anymore.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and
Yeah.
if you can get it, we're happy.
Get it
Yeah.
in here
Bring
and
it
sell
in.
it. Yeah.
I think I heard that story around the time that McDonald's was
Right.
like, we're gonna shut down our brand in Russia, and they were like, fine, we'll make our own McDonald's.
Yeah.
Essentially,
Yeah.
so yeah, this happening in this way is in a way is like very much something that that is going on with a lot of other company stuff. I don't know that it's going on in the same kind of way, though.
The idea that it is the CEO of Russia,
Of Nintendo Russia.
of Nintendo Russia, and operating out of what was previously or still registered as the Nintendo Russia offices
Yeah.
is quite odd.
So I did read a thing that because there was like an article I read where Nintendo had responded.
Oh, really?
And,
They've responded now.
They basically didn't talk about the that part going on, but the fact that they were still there in to be able to handle repairs and things for products they had already sold.
Right. That's the reason why.
That's
why
not why
Nintendo
they're not
exists.
like shut down completely. And I think they may have mentioned that they're aware of the law that Russia has implemented, but I don't think they've mentioned anything about what directly is going on, because why would you?
There's a weird
Right.
sort of thing too that it's like, look, the laws that Russia, like if Russia passes a law that says you can now do this, then that's legal within that country. Obviously, like doing those kind of things is legal as far as the country is concerned, because now they don't give a crap about whether something's been authorized or unauthorized or whatever. It's just import whatever you want. We're not going to give a shit about that. And then if the rest of the world has laws that says, well, you can't sell things if there's sanctions currently, like it's not, because sanctions aren't laws, they're just sanctions, right? And so if there were laws already about you can't sell something into a country for whatever reasons, or we have the sanctions say this, but also there are laws that say that you can't sell to a place that hasn't signed like the Berne Convention or whatever, isn't part of like international copyright law, and if they're counting that, it's like there's obviously lots of like legal fray to wade through in this. And I don't have anywhere near a firm enough understanding, and I doubt most video game journalists have a very firm understanding of the intricacies of that on a worldwide scale.
But like I think the general idea is that whatever the consequences from an international trade standpoint of doing this, the situation Russia is currently in is way worse in every single way possible.
Yes.
So they don't care.
Yeah. And,
like,
yeah.
What are they going to do? Yeah, impose sanctions.
And it's right, and it's funny too, because like I mean, we bring up McDonald's, right? Like they closed down McDonald's, and it's like, well, if McDonald's says we're pulling our franchisees' rights and everything, and we're pulling all the whatever, I'm like, I don't know if McDonald's Russia as a company, or McDonald's the worldwide entity that has like a spin-off arm for McDonald's Russia or whatever, like their local office, if they're like, you can't use the property anymore because there's a McDonald's in it, but we're going to shut down McDonald's so it can't operate, and we still technically are renting those properties, or we're technically doing whatever. If they're like, no, we're closing everything down and we're canceling our agreements, we're not franchising anymore. It's like, well, you have a restaurant that happens to have a whole bunch of grilling stations and places to sell all this other stuff, and it's all just there.
Well,
if you go in and you just... I don't know, we're making spaghetti. Like, you could do that. Like, you could just be like, I can go in and make something. So it's like, we'll just go in and start making burgers. I'm like, well, it makes sense.
When you shut down a franchised restaurant, generally, I don't think you necessarily get to... Each company's different, but in a lot of cases, they will remove those things. Because they don't want someone coming in after to do stuff like that.
It does depend on the franchisee's agreement, because in a lot of cases, when you're buying a franchise, what you're doing is you're buying access to the supply chain, you're buying access to equipment that they operate, and they say you're going to install this.
You're also
but you have purchased that equipment.
Yes, but your equipment, but you're paying for the ability to use the giant M arch.
Yeah,
and that would come down.
Yeah, and so you take all that stuff down.
Stuff like that would generally come down or be gotten rid of, or it's supposed to be.
All the branding is going to be gone.
Now, Whether or not that gets enforced is different.
Yeah.
Right.
Because what are they going to do?
But
Can
the
you send
reason you
people
get
in
rid
and do
of
it?
the reason
Again.
you get rid of that kind of branding is because again, they don't want people to just do things and then
Yeah. But as Vera says, they removed all the logos. So if all the logos are gone and all the agreement stuff and they don't have access to supply chain, but it's like the Russian supply chain for hamburger and buns is still in place. It's like we can still keep making burgers. Now they're just not McDonald's hamburgers. They're just whatever we make here.
I don't know that they're not though. I feel like if it's legal for you to not care where you live, why wouldn't you call them McDonald's hamburgers?
I mean, you could call them McDonald's hamburgers. There'd be no point. They don't want to do that. I mean, the thing is, they're not doing that anymore. But the point I was making is that you can do that with hamburgers and buns. You can't really do that with Nintendo games. You can't really say, well, we closed down the whatever, so we're just going to sit here and code our own games for the Switch?
I don't think they care enough to not call them McDonald's hamburgers in the same way that it's just like, it's just a Nintendo game.
Yeah, but they aren't calling them McDonald's hamburgers is the point I'm also making. They literally are not doing that. They've changed the logos. They've changed all the signage. Everything is all different now. And they're like, no, we're opening our own McDonald's with blackjack and hookers. That's what they did, and they're not calling them McDonald's hamburgers. They're just whatever the name of the new company or the new restaurant is. It's these things hamburgers. It's got like a B in the title. I think they just turned the arches sideways and they made a B out of it.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, it's quite a weird. Yeah, anyway, we should get into international politics that we don't know that much about anyway. But it is a weird idea, this, like, that it's a little bit like we find out about, stuff with, like, the, president, the various political offices and various things that it's like all, everything is all these kind of intermeshed, interconnected agreements between countries,
Right.
Where there's economic leverage and there's all these different things, and a lot of it is predicated on the idea that somebody isn't just going to say no.
Yeah.
What like when somebody is acting in a way that is like when it's like, oh, we all of the things that we have done that we can do to discourage this behavior we've done already, and they're still doing it. We don't actually have another move here.
Yeah.
From an economic point, then then it starts getting into
it's political and then it's military
and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's sort of a lot of the infrastructure and the sort of international stuff around trade and stuff is based on this idea that you're not going to be deliberately antagonizing each other because you want to continue to have trade operations.
Right.
And if somebody's operating outside that, then why would you care about international copyright?
Yeah. It's true.
Anyway. It'll be interesting to see. The big thing about this, the sort of question is this, like, whether they're, whether for the Nintendo thing, whether it's operating, whether it's getting like wholesale things, or whether they're
if they have to import it,
if they're just like literally buying them and bringing them in and reselling them, or whether it's actually like a wholesale import deal.
Switch is also not region locked.
That's true.
So they could get them from anywhere.
If I don't know if Russia has its specific own region. It's probably within the European sense of like whatever they get their copies for.
Right.
But even if they didn't, the Switch isn't region locked.
You can't localize.
They could be importing them from anywhere.
Yeah, you can't.
A lot of carts have all the languages on them.
But they had to have been localized by somebody. Like somebody would have had to have said, I have to translate it into Russian, and you would assume that Nintendo Russia would be responsible for doing a lot of the localization. There might be like a window now where games are getting translated and people are being like, we're not going to translate them into Russian. And I think we had that happen earlier with like Stalker or something, where they were like, we're not going to put Russian in the game.
Well, that was one of somebody was attempting to extort them.
Yeah, to
make them do a Russian translation. I think this could become an interesting story again if it's revealed that like this is somehow actually like it's actually like Nintendo trying to skirt around their own the sanctions
Yeah,
or
'cause
something.
at that point,
Because that would be
that's-
really bad.
Yeah.
At that point, you're like, oh, we pull out, but not really.
Yeah,
At that
yeah.
point, that's just for show.
Yeah.
So that's something that I could see if that like if there was the idea that this activity is actually sort of approved or
I don't know if we'll ever find that.
I don't know,
out.
you know, if we probably won't, but like I could see that as being a scandal, but otherwise, I guess it's just sort of business as usual.
Yeah.
Speaking of business,
Speaking of business as usual, yeah. Crediting in video games has been getting a little more.
More stories have been coming onto the pile,
Yeah, it's got a little more
outrage about
focus
it
recently.
Recently,
especially
a lot more,
with more remasters.
Yeah.
So Metroid Prime. This story sort of started with the Metroid Prime remaster, talking about how it just says, Metroid Prime by the original Metroid Prime team or something.
Yeah,
and then that's it.
And that's all they have to say,
in terms of original Metroid Prime credits.
Yeah.
And so this idea that there aren't really standards at the moment, or at least not well codified standards for how to do this kind of crediting. Each production, each studio kind of just does it however they want to do it.
Right.
And as the guy from Metro,
Jack
Matthews talks about, a lot of it will be like whether your particular VP or your particular boss will sort of fight for it.
Yeah.
To get somebody in the comments actually on the YouTube video for this was talking about how they're a QA tester.
Oh yeah.
And they often get, like the head QA and then maybe the second people, but like
right, assistant head, yeah.
But but then that'll be it. Like they don't, a lot of the time they don't get the full credit list.
Right.
And I would guess that probably has a lot to do with who the head QA tester is and whether he, goes to bat for the rest of his team to get credited, or whether he doesn't, or whether they don't care.
And or even if it might be like, how hard do you go to bat? Because you're like, QA is always kind of getting shit on anyway, and you're like, hey, maybe this year, guys, we let our 40 QA guys onto the credits list. It's like, no, Dan, get the fuck out. And it's like, okay, I tried, guys, but
like
the question is, who's going to test whether adding 40 more names is going to mess up the system?
But the story proceeds to talk about how it's like this is not a new topic in the industry, but also it's kind of a cross industry. Like it's like even for the Mario movie, Grant Kirkhope, who composed the DK rap, he says, I wrote the rap. I'm going to assume that's also I wrote the lyrics, I wrote the song, I composed the whole piece that went into the movie. And it shows up in the movie as from Donkey Kong 64, and that's it.
Yeah, well, because in a lot of cases, especially older games and things, if you make a thing like that for a company that you're working for, it's the company that has ownership over it, not the person.
Yeah,
who
and they
made
think
it.
about it as work for hire sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Now,
but if you're employed to do the work totally, you'd think that would mean that you get a proper credit to
I
say,
agree.
yeah.
Like I agree. And I want that to be clear. I agree. He should still have been credited as the person who did the rap,
especially in a movie.
But that when you see that kind of accreditation where it's like, oh well, this came from this book or this movie or this game, usually that's because those are the places that technically own that, as opposed to.
So like. I would guess that like if you looked at the credits for Donkey Kong 64, I would hope that this person would be in the credits in Donkey Kong 64 for doing the
I would hope
it's sort of a nested credit system.
but yeah, at the same time, because that's a very specific part of it.
Yeah.
I would actually assume you would put both in. You would say that this was by this person and originally comes from this game.
It's funny because you can. I mean, I'm not trying to shit on this. You could start to break this down even further because you could say that, the Mario design based on, it's like Mario character designer so and so, right? Based on a design provided or based on a design by Shigeru Miyamoto. Okay. Princess Peach, based on a design by, I actually don't know who designed the sprite for Princess Peach or designed the new design for Princess Peach from like Mario 64 that really things are like where you have a lot more detail. Or maybe they're talking about an even later design in a different game that's designed by some person who's a character designer working for Smash Brothers or something. And it's like, if you start breaking down like those kind of things too, it's like, well, when Illumination does Minions, everybody's in-house who designs Minions, right? It's like when they do Despicable Me, it's like those things were designed by the people who worked for, because it was all original ideas to come from there. And in a movie situation where you're inheriting an IP from another company, you could get into a thing where it could be really, it could start to be like you have to break down, these are based on designs by so-and-so, this is based on designs by so-and-so. And I'm like, I think that'd be really cool if we had that kind of, if they gave that kind of credit. We don't know if they do or they don't. I've never seen the movie. I haven't seen the credits. It would stand to reason that they probably didn't, though. They probably would be like, we drew our new concept art, we did everything ourselves, we designed the characters in-house, even though they're based on designs from Nintendo, registered trademark, that kind of idea.
It's, and I mean,
we do it with our own stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, we talk about, you in the article, it talks about, in comparison to movie crediting, which is extremely movie and television crediting, which is extremely
specific,
codified.
Oh yeah, okay.
Extremely specific and codified.
Yeah.
Because of the the Writers Guild and the Screen Actors Guild and stuff. Which, by the way, there's differences between a guild and a union, both legally and from an organizational standpoint, that are kind of slightly relevant to this kind of stuff. So the idea that it's like that video game designers should be unionized is definitely true. It's possibly slightly separate from the crediting thing, because it's sort of more of a, because the union is like, are making sure that our jobs are well respected and everything, whereas the guild is more of a industry-wide standardization thing, as opposed to
what makes someone a director, or
as opposed to what the like benefits are of my particular job, or what that kind of anyway. But there's like, I was actually just thinking about like even in movies, there'll be things where something will be like, there'll be like a movie or a TV show within the movie, it'll say like, Wizard of Oz appears courtesy of MGM Entertainment.
Yes.
They don't then go in and start crediting all the people who did Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Right. So there is some of that kind of nested crediting.
Right.
Already.
Yeah. You could say that the Mario character design courtesy of Nintendo, or all these are courtesy of Nintendo. It's like, if you want to look up where these come from, go look at the Nintendo games. The credits will be in the Nintendo games. You could come at that direction. I see what you're saying.
But it is interesting, and the document for the IDDA is actually quite, it's a fairly nuanced document. There's sort of a one pager, and then the actual document is about 15 pages.
Just in case you haven't
pages.
watched ChillPoint yet, the International Game Developers Association has a working group.
Yes.
That is devoted to just game credits.
Yeah. They have created a working group around this issue because they realize that it is an important issue. By the way, I love this document. They produced this new document because they had a recommendation before, but it hadn't been updated since like 2017. So they have this new more thorough recommendations, and it goes into detail about remasters, or for live service type things, or the other thing they talk about is like situations where or situations where like the lead designer of a game leaves partway through and a new person comes in.
Right. So who do you credit?
They're saying they should both be credited, at least according to this. Now this is just an industry group that has put out guidelines.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no
laws.
This is not a law or anything like that, but this is could be considered best practices, I guess, or what they consider to be best practices. But what I appreciate about this document is it's quite, it's fairly extensive, going into detail about all this stuff. How long is this thing? 20 pages.
Sounds like a lot, but it really isn't.
However, I mean, it's, going into a lot of detail and has examples and different stuff like that.
But you could sit and read it in like about an hour or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, the last 3 pages, pages 18, 19, and 20, are the credits for the document, including all the people who were involved in producing the document, and also crediting all the people that were involved in the 2017 working group, and all the people that they consulted in the process of making the document.
Right.
I mean,
I appreciate that they put their money where their mouth is.
I mean, there's that, but you could also consider that then to be a bit of an example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like they're showing that they actually are attempting to actually do this.
Yeah, they're doing what they're
So this is the 2007, not 2017.
Oh, well, that's
The original,
definitely different time.
Yeah, this is version 10.3. Like they've been working on this for a while.
So is the original. They have like the original contributors, and then the new committee members 2014, and then the contributors from 2020 to 2023, additional contributors. So
it's also not just a list of names; it's a list of what they were doing or who they were being represented by or why they were part of the group in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense for this kind of document.
Yeah, and it's like that's one of the things that is mentioned even in the one sheet, which you should all go read actually, because even just reading the one sheet is really cool, because it does say credit someone for their role, not their title, and I love that because like especially like in a business like ours where Paul is the co-president of Bionic Trousers Media, but Paul could be working on tech, and he should be credited on something as working as the tech person, right? It's like giving him credit as the president in the credits on a production would be like, well, what does that actually tell you about what he contributed to the show?
Usually gets credited as executive producer.
Right, you get that as well, right? So, but it's like if you're working a tech thing, it's like, oh, Paul was teching this thing, and then you get acknowledged for that, and it's like, yeah, I might be the business manager, but I'm holding a boom for this crap shot, or for this Commodore Hustle, or for this whatever it was that we're shooting, and it's like, right, credit them for what their role was, because that gives you a better idea of who was doing what at the time, and it lets those people then also pull together, like, I was the character designer on this, but I was the art director for this next game, but on the next game I did all the lead art design, even though I was still the art director. I was doing lead art design and focused on this. It's like that gets you credits that shows your range of work.
I mean, I assume for this thing we need what we need is a little bit of an attitude adjustment on the idea of just that people should get credited regardless of their position.
Yeah.
And regardless of whether or not they leave in the middle of production, which is generally I feel like is meant more to be a tactic of
sort of a retribution.
Well, you won't leave. Like I had this kind of happen when I worked at Walmart. There's like at the time, they think they do it a bit differently now, but at the time, once a year you got kind of like this bonus. But if you left before bonuses were paid, there was always this undercurrent of like, well, you probably won't get it then if you do. And if because of where they gave them out, you had like another 6 months to get your next one. So, like, to me, that's kind of how that works here. Is it's more of a, sure, it could be retribution for how dare you leave in the middle, but it also could be considered an incentive for why you have to stay till the very end.
Yeah. I mean, academia does this. I had a friend who was working on a grad paper at a university in Japan, and he'd been working for months and months on this stuff. He'd been putting in all this effort. He'd been doing all this research. Running all these experiments and everything else. And he got to the end and he handed in the results that he was working on with that. But he left the university because he was just like, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to move back to Canada. And so he did. He basically just pulled out of the program. But he had done everything he needed to do to fulfill his rights within the program, that he could have graduated and gotten his master's or whatever it was he was working on. And this is how I remember the story. Maybe I'm getting it wrong. I don't know. But he ended up finding out later that they kept his name off of the final paper, despite the fact that he dumped a ton of work into it as a grad student studying under the person. It's like that basically meant that he didn't get credited on academic work that he had contributed to, because it was kind of a, well, you didn't stick around to finish the thing by my decision, even though you did all this work, so you don't get to have any credit at all.
So we need to stop that attitude.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing we probably need to do is people need to be more aware that that's a thing that's going to happen, and they need to keep track of more names.
Yeah.
Because I think, like, if you want to go, like, those are very insidious reasons potentially, but if you want to go, like, really benign, it's, I don't keep track of everybody, and then I don't know who did what.
Yeah.
And then you have to get a thing in time, and it gets it. But I really do believe if you can put in all of your production babies and all of your pet names for people who have pets on a thing, you can be bothered to get a little bit more organized.
You put your QA team in there too, right?
I mean, realistically, tracking down all the production babies to find out what their names are usually a little easier than usually
they
production.
Don't move around
Parents are usually good about saying, "I want my kid's name in the credits."
Production babies haven't usually gone on to some other line of work, and you don't have any contact information for them.
It'd be very hard also to say, like, if a Toy Story baby was like going to Pixar now and was like, hey, I want to be able to also claim the fact that I was a production baby on Toy Story, but I'm working on like Turning Red. Here we are 20 years later. And it'd be like, that'd be a little hard to prove that you are indeed the Dale that's been mentioned in the Toy Story, because it just says Dale. It doesn't say Dale Johnson, right?
Right. Because, because those aren't...
They don't give the last names on purpose.
They aren't real credits in that way, Anyway.
Good on the IGDA for saying we're going to not only develop policies, we're going to give you guys samples, we're going to give you guys automated toolkits, we're going to try our best to ease this process for you.
And I appreciate the sort of nuance that they have, that the reason why this is a 20-page document, other than the 3 pages of credits, is that it is, they talk about various things about, if somebody does a chunk of work that less than 30 days.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't need credit. So, like, it's not just come on, just credit everybody.
Yeah.
How hard is it? There's a lot of nuance to it that you get into when you do get into, like, the nitty-gritty stuff.
We did mention earlier, because we were talking about, if you say a movie makes reference to this property has lent their stuff, you can go look at the credits for that property elsewhere. The argument could still be made that Metroid Prime Remaster did say, based on the Nintendo GameCube and Wii versions of Metroid Prime by Retro Studios, they have that as a credit in the credits to be like, it's based on this, but they don't have a full original staff credits.
I'm assuming that whoever came up with doing the credits for that thought that was good enough.
That would be sufficient. And in a way, it's like, it's the barest minimum that you could even do, because they could have just ignored it outright, but they said, no, we're going to look at that, we're going to do it like this. And what I think is interesting is that the argument I'm making, or the thing that I'm saying, was like, you could just reference the old work, and I'm like, you're right, you could just say, oh, well, I'll go look up the credits for the original Metroid Prime to see everybody involved. So that is a thing you could do, because you know that these things are based on that, so why isn't that good enough? Why isn't that good enough, right? Like, maybe it should be, but also I don't think it should be. I do think that especially if it's the same fucking studio, you should have the original list and be like, put it in as a separate role, do something else with it, right?
One of the things in this document was make the credits easily findable, like, don't gate them behind...
that you have to finish the game.
That you have to finish the game. So what you're saying is, like, if we go with that theory of you can just reference the older game. First of all, can you even find that game?
Right.
Is it available?
Are they published online anywhere? Maybe they're not.
Well, a lot of that stuff is like, even IMDb, a lot of stuff from that is self-filled out.
Right.
It's true.
So if you're not filling that out, it's just not going to be there. And to a degree, people aren't encouraged to put stuff, especially if they're in the middle of working on something, because, again, maybe that hasn't been set up for PR yet, and then you're dealing with gaming leaks and shit. But I have to find an old GameCube version of this game and then play it till the end?
Yeah, exactly. That seems like a kind of a ass backwards way to come at the problem.
Anyway,
Definitely not solving this problem today.
You know what also won't solve a problem? The Xbox special edition wireless controller that is made of a third recycled plastic for Earth Day.
Yeah.
So, yay.
66% new plastic by volume.
I mean, this is one of those things where it's like, okay, one, it doesn't really, doesn't really make that much difference. But also, why isn't it normally made of?
Yeah, all of them should be.
Right. Is there a reason?
Yes.
Is it because it's more expensive? Is it because it's not as good?
Mm-hmm.
If it gets wet, is it going to like dissolve in your hands?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, like is it biodegradable?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it won't be, but that idea of like, if you make a controller out of like some recycled plastic, is it going to be less durable and therefore a less good product? Well, if that's the case, why are you selling that? And also, maybe were they selling it at a markup, or is it the same price? It's special edition, right? But that idea of like Microsoft's been doing, I'm going to give them this. They have people working at Xbox who are thinking about what are all the more sustainable options we could be bringing to the platform. We want to figure out a way to make the thing turn itself off or run in low power mode more often, or do other things to kind of consume less electricity. And we want to build a controller that has more sustainable plastics in it, or has more sustainable plastic options. I mean, it's still all fucking plastic, but it's like,
I mean, to be honest, I quite like the color of it.
I think it looks pretty cool.
Like the sort of matte, kind of matte earth tones.
Yeah,
I
the
actually,
greens and blues. Yeah,
like I actually legit like it as a controller, whether fancy sustainable thing or not.
Yeah. Oh hell yeah! Make it out of bamboo. Oh god, if
Xbox wireless controller remix special edition.
How much are they selling it for? Is it $99?
$85 US.
Is that roughly what they cost? I have no idea.
I have no idea
What a US dollar is.
Most controllers are like around that kind of mark now.
If that's,
I don't know if that's.
Yeah, like it feels like.
I don't know the price of an Xbox controller. Personally, I quite dislike the Xbox controller.
Okay, so 85 is more than 70. Yes, that's true. Those numbers
so
are
I mean,
that
it's
way.
a special edition. It's got a built-in charge pack and stuff. So I mean, I don't know.
I think it'd be very cool if they kind of kept if they kept that ball rolling. It was like, hey, we can make these and they actually come out pretty good. And what if the next series of controllers we make are going to be made from X number of recycled plastics?
Wait. Introducing Regrind Squared, a process of mechanically recycling leftover Xbox One generation controller parts into problem. This isn't just recycled plastic. This is recycled plastic from other Xbox controllers. I don't know if that's better or worse,
do they mean they ground up the old controllers, or they mean they're just reusing the old controllers with newer parts inside?
Mechanically recycling
Sounds
leftover
like
generated controller parts
Yeah.
into raw material that can be partially used to recreate new controllers while maintaining durability and performance.
Let me explain the colors actually. Because if you're adding in the dyes afterwards
Yeah.
to get the color.
Yeah, whatever I don't know what the colors of were they just black?
A lot of them were black,
Yeah.
and then
Black,
there's some
but
white.
white.
Yeah.
That's really, I mean, yeah, it's a very cool idea. I think that anything you can do as a big company who have the economies of scale to be making a difference, the things that they can do everywhere they're doing them, the more often they do them, they should be doing them. They should absolutely be doing all those things.
Now
It should be their goddamn responsibility.
I like that it's like, oh, and check this out. It has the pad.
Sure does.
And the buttons. This is not a thing for this. This is just how controllers work. That's not actually like a.
Now,
this has the dedicated share button. Okay, this is actually a special.
Now, if I was in the market for a controller, then I would probably consider it. But it might, like at a $15 markup, I might not buy it if it has no real other special purpose.
That's assuming if the normal controllers don't come with their own battery pack, then maybe
Yeah.
that's a value add for you. Like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
It's still an Xbox controller. I ain't buying it.
Well, I'm the same way, right? But I'm like, okay, if Nintendo had done this with a Pro controller, I'd be like, would I be thinking of buying a new Pro controller? I'm like, I'm kind of not thinking. Like, okay, that's a lie. I am thinking of buying the Tears of the Kingdom Pro controller when I don't fucking need it. I have a Pro controller and it works great, and I'm like, buying another piece of plastic is maybe not a good idea, especially when I don't need it, and spending $100 on it is like, I don't think it's necessary, but I kind of want one. And I don't like that impulse of I want to buy more plastic to put in my house because I kind of just want it. So, yeah.
See, Nintendo was trying to save you from yourself during that period where you couldn't buy anything from.
And yet...
Yeah. I mean, I still ended up buying stuff from Nintendo, so, yeah.
All right, let's take a look at some of the stories that we didn't cover on the episode of Checkpoint. Starting with EVE Online. Hey,
Again?
Everyone's favorite.
No.
Everyone's
What'd they do this time?
favorite video game that is also a spreadsheet simulator. Okay, so this is great. This is somebody. So basically, this is another one of these sort of social engineering things that is actually not necessarily a problem with EVE Online.
No,
but because EVE has this sort of greater thing, what happened is this guy saw this or realized that there was this a company, what they call
right, because there's in-game companies.
Yeah, in-game companies
Yeah.
Is the equivalent of like a guild in other games, or
Okay.
It's just like a group. And companies have like there's sort of a board of directors and stuff, and they have voting and.
Wait, I don't understand why people play this game again.
And there's and the company has assets as well.
Sounds
like
work.
a given company can own ships and all this kind of stuff.
And there's a controlling structure, and there are technically like employees, but you fly ships around. And
you fly ships around and stuff.
You fight. Yeah.
So this guy, there's this relatively small company, 299 members, in-game corporation, that he noticed that the CEO and the directors were minimally active. So they weren't really logging into the game very often.
Sure. Okay.
Again, why? It's a second job now.
And so he joins up to the company. He asks to join the company.
Okay.
And in a couple weeks, when somebody in the high level actually bothers to log in and goes like, sure. He and his buddy both join this company.
Okay.
They then go through a process that is not really explained here, but they go through a process to initiate. Basically, they initiate a vote of non-confidence against the board of directors.
Oh, okay.
And puts himself up. And because nobody is paying attention, there are 2 votes for who gets the CEO position, his and his buddies.
Oh, no.
Right, which is why you need a friend for this scam.
Okay, holy shit.
Because this sounds like it's about to be a scam.
And then he strips all the resources that the corporation owns. So it adds a bunch of ships and stuff.
This is... EVE Online supports the kind of... Like, this isn't a thing that you form outside of a game on a mailing list.
No.
This is literally stuff that is provided for you in EVE Online as a means of managing all of this equipment, that it's like, vote of non-confidence, we can do this, we can take over the board, we can do things this way. It's all built into the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although there is a lot of outside the game stuff on, forums and things.
Yeah.
But yeah, this part is all inside the game. And so... yeah, they and then they were able to extract all the stuff. Now, of course, when a lot of the articles and stuff are saying $22,000 worth of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, whenever anybody says certain amount of money worth of EVE Online stuff. It's a little bit weird because technically you can't actually extract money from EVE Online.
Mm-hmm.
You can only put money into it. But the conversion that they use is because you can use in-game currency to buy what are called pilot license extensions, which are basically subscription to the game,
Right.
which costs like $10. So you can use X number of in-game dollars. If you have enough in-game dollars, you don't have to pay for the game. Essentially, you don't have to pay for a subscription. So there is some sort of translation of value there,
Right.
but it's not like this guy actually can have $22,000 in his bank account.
There's no way to cash this out either, is there?
Not legitimately. Okay. I mean,
Well,
not within the game anyway.
can't
No,
give.
you'd have to go to a third-party site and sell it to somebody.
Theoretically, yeah, account selling and stuff is a thing.
Right.
But presumably you also wouldn't get $22,000 for it. But within the game and in the within the context, and you can get banned for that and stuff. Like within the context of the game, there's not supposed to be any way to make money. So yeah, this is a just another one of these things, sort of emergent, like, and of course from the point of view from CCP,
Yeah.
the developers of EVE Online,
Yeah.
this is working as intended.
Yeah.
Like they don't have any problem
It's like
with
we
it.
can't roll
They're-
this back.
They're not going to step in to stop this because this is fine. This
Yeah.
is just something that happens in this universe.
Yeah.
In the same way as big wars happen in the universe and big other things happen.
Yeah.
That's just that's what they want,
And if you're upset by it,
which is cool.
The
yeah.
emergent gameplay of thievery.
Yeah.
And I mean, what kind of sucks is it's like two people came along and said, "Hey, we can take over this corp, and we can basically, we can, not unfairly, don't say that, but we can,
Within the rules.
there's a legal term called unlawful conversion." Which is basically just theft, but it's like we can convert, but it isn't unlawful. We can convert all of these assets into our assets, and we can take we did this all legally as far as the game is concerned. And while the people who are operating this in-game corporation will be like, hey, no, wait, there's maybe 10 of us or 15 of us, or maybe there's 100 of them, right? We dumped all this money into the game, we dumped all this money in the corporation, and these guys came along and stole all from us. It's like, well, there were mechanisms in the game to prevent that kind of thing from happening. There were other things that you could have done. You would have to be involved a little bit more often. Like, there's all these different things that could have been done to prevent this kind of, or slow down this kind of thing. You might drive away 10 or 100 people who were a part of that guild from your game in favor of the 2 people who now have all this stuff. But that could also give rise to the 10 or 100 people joining other guilds, or I keep saying guilds, but joining other in-game companies and being like, hey, help us take revenge on these fuckers who did this to us.
And this is the thing. I mean, we've talked before about big wars that have happened in EVE and stuff. The one time I think, or I don't know if it's the one thing, but one thing I know, situation where CCP actually does step in,
Right.
And they've said is people trying to operate as banks. There was an incident.
A bank is just a different kind of company.
Well, yeah, but basically because they want to have they don't want to lose control of the economy of the game,
Right.
I guess. And I mean that's the difference between EVE and the real world is that in the world of EVE, well, one of the differences in terms of from an economic point of view, the world of EVE, CCP is God.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
They can snap their fingers and make anything happen within the world. They
Right.
can devalue something, increase the value of something, make a certain resource suddenly plentiful, take it away. They can, do anything that they want. And they have several economists working for them,
Yeah.
basically in analyzing how all this stuff affects things.
And what might happen if you do get involved in changing too much stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, there was a banking issue where somebody set up a bunch of somebody set up banks in places where you could, put money in.
Okay.
And they would give you interest on it.
Oh, okay.
And they were taking money from everybody, and then they just left.
Yeah, because how the frig do you pay interest out? Because there's no means of reinvestment. So banks have to banks that make their money off the fact that they can invest things in other places. So
there might be a stock market in the
you'd have to lend people money and be like, but you owe us this money back at this amount. And like, well, how are you going to enforce that?
Yeah. Anyway,
I don't know how they even enforce it in real life. Who knows? It's all a mystery.
Let's see here. Bolt gun. Warhammer 40,000 bolt gun.
Right. This is that retro game.
Which is
or retro-ish.
It is a new it is a new game that's coming out, but it is designed to
feel like an old school FPS.
Feel like a old school Doom style FPS.
Which is weird to me because I'm like, have we really stopped making games like this up until this point? But
I mean, there's been a recent resurgence in, sometimes they're called boomer shooters.
Oh, yeah. Look, boomers didn't really play these games, folks. I know, but I know it rhymes, so that's fine. I'll let you have it, but it's kind of...
Oh, it's not because the guns go boom.
No, it's because it's for old people, so, yeah. I am not a boomer. I am a zillennial, technically, but I'm not a boomer. My parents are boomers. Please keep calling your grandparents boomers. That pisses them off.
My favorite thing about this, as somebody who's somewhat into Warhammer 40,000 lore, is so this is these Doom and stuff came out in the late 80s, early 90s. That's the sort of that's the era of game that they're emulating.
Yeah.
This style of Space Marine, what are called the beaky Space Marines, they have sort of this beaked helmet.
Okay.
They don't make anymore. They made those. That was the style of Space Marine that they made in
that era.
when the first style, the first Space Marine models that came out from Games Workshop.
Oh, that's good. Good for them.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it looks very straightforward an idea, and that they're also like, well, let's play on this kind of nostalgia, which is...
I mean, that's what's been happening with those games, right? It's Warhammer in different style of video game.
Yeah.
Because I think the last one they did was like an XCOM-esque style thing.
I think
I mean, there was... I think it was probably a year ago now or something, but I remember there's a little while ago that Games Workshop did a presentation. They were just like, there's 30 games coming out with the Warhammer IP.
Yeah.
We're just going to give it to anybody.
Why not, right? I guess if you're like, people like the IP, but they don't want to go down to the Games Workshop or wherever and try to play people.
Ours is almost never open.
Yeah. So it's like, you don't want to go down to go play the game, or you go to your local whatever store and and play a war game there. It's like, I just want to sit in or I want to play it online. Not a bad move by Games Workshop to say, let's just license the IP out and make money off of it. Oh yeah, this was interesting.
Yeah. So what would happen if you effectively had like The Sims, but all the Sims were controlled by the like LLM chat GPT style,
the large language models
style AI systems,
right? And
they were kind of left on their own for a while.
So this isn't a game so much as it's like,
this is sort of a simulation that some researchers did.
I would guess either Everything Becomes Paradise or Lord of the Flies situation.
Like the idea when you leave two large language models to talk, even if you have two Eliza bots talking to each other, they will just kind of keep doing that. And I imagine just the more complicated you make the language model between two of them is that they can have conversation-looking things that might lead somewhere. But
so yeah, I mean, in terms of style, the sort of interface that they have on this, it's more Stardew Valley than Sims. But
yeah,
the idea here is that it's like So they basically created this little community, virtual community, and they made 25 AI characters, or
Right.
25
NPCs.
and then they gave each NPC a sort of description of itself
Right.
to kind of get the ball rolling.
Yeah. Here's your seed.
So here's the excerpt from one of the seed memories they gave was, John Lynn is a pharmacy shopkeeper at the Willow Market and Pharmacy who loves to help people. He's always looking for ways to make the process of getting medication easier for his customers. John Lynn is living with his wife, May Lynn, who is a college professor, and son, Eddie Lynn, who is a student studying music theory. John Lynn loves his family very much.
Okay.
And so they set everybody up with these different things, and they kind of let it go for a bit.
Right.
And with sort of, adding different inputs and stuff, and observed how the behaviors and all the sort of emergent behaviors.
Right. Because they get to have conversations with each other, and based on the things that are being said, the characters decide to, I shouldn't say decide, but based on the inputs of another character talking to them, they're now saying other things, and other things will happen as a result.
And so, yeah, they were really interested so they talked about emergent behaviors. So information diffusion, right? So if they gave a piece of information to one of the agents,
Right.
one of the characters, it would start telling that information to other people, and that information would
Spread in that way.
throughout the community.
Well, small town, no secrets.
Lots of gossip. Yeah.
Well, they say like, so they out of the prompt of hey, there's an AI agent is named Isabella Rodriguez, works at the cafe,
Okay.
and they gave the suggestion that she should have a Valentine's Day party.
Okay.
So that was it. That was the only input that they
Yeah.
gave.
No explanation what Valentine's Day is. No
So
explanation about
she-
what's supposed to happen.
So she starts planning this party.
Right.
She invited all sorts of people to the party, and they invited other people. People started like couples formed to go to the party. So
Right.
other agents decided to go together.
Somebody asked at their crush. Yeah.
And yeah, so it was like this whole thing. She decorated the cafe she got her friend to help her decorate the cafe, and her friend invited the person that they had a crush on to the party. Like, so there's this whole thing that was sort of happening because they said, you should have a Valentine's Day party, and then it sort of happened. So this idea of, obviously this is a very sort of constrained thing, but this idea of sort of emergent behavior, and it could be quite a interesting, especially obviously from like from an AI standpoint,
Yeah.
the idea that you could, stuff would be sort of going on in a little village,
In Stardew Valley. Yeah.
Stardew Valley, or wherever you're out adventuring, and you come back, and like, what's all the new town gossip?
Right.
And it's not, it's not like, and we talked about this as being, the way that games are currently designed.
Right.
A lot of this doesn't, this would be kind of a tricky thing.
Right.
Because there's the idea of like, I don't know what information is important now, and like from a gameplay perspective, there's some aspects of that they would have to sort of figure out.
Right.
But maybe the whole idea is that it's a different kind of a game.
Yeah. If you're an adventurer and you walk into town and there's stuff going on in that town, and you come back later and there's different stuff going on in the town, it's like, well, that does make sense. If you've never been to that town before and nobody's met you, there's a different way they're going to interact with you than if you come back later and you've interacted with everybody, and some people remember you, some people don't. Like, I like the Valentine's Day party thing because it's like some people said they would show up and then they didn't.
Yeah, so
Like,
there
that happens.
out of 25 agents, 12 heard about the party, were informed about the party by people telling them.
Right.
5 showed up. 3 said they were too busy. 4 didn't want to go. Or 4 just didn't want to go. Or 4 just didn't show up.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, The other thing that they did in this, which was great, is they got research assistants to after watching some of the stuff to sort of try to take over one of the agents.
Oh, okay.
And play as that person. But the general consensus was that the real person playing as that AI agent was less believable
Huh.
than
Then
the AI doing it.
I was thinking about something like when I'd read this originally, and then I was thinking about it even just now. There was something about it where I was like, it's a bit like two games come to mind: Tomodachi Life and Dwarf Fortress. Right? Because I'm like, in Tomodachi Life, that idea of a bunch of people that you've maybe assembled into a game, all interacting with each other, but a lot of those things are based on stock events that have been programmed into the game.
Yeah, but
and
you
it's
have
just
no
about
control over them.
Yeah, but it becomes more interesting when you realize that there's two people who are interacting in the game. Because you put two of us into the game, like Heather and I go into the game, it's like there's no guarantee that we can tell it that it's like, oh, we're spouses. Right? And even if we decide to marry each other in the game, we could get divorced.
But yeah, I put two of our friends in the several of our friends in this game.
If you get married in real life, does it count in the game?
And I didn't tell anyone. But two of our friends who are together got married, then got divorced.
Yeah.
And then started dating again. Like, it was all very weird because it felt very like, it's just weird to watch.
It's very dramatic.
It's actually a lot. I feel like in a lot of ways it's a lot more fun to put in fictional characters.
Yes.
Than it is your friends.
Yeah, it's a shipping material.
There you go.
But Dwarf Fortress gives me this kind of idea as well, because it really feels like I think the Dwarf Fortress lore generators are largely built off of like Markov chain stuff, because that was what was around at the time. And I'm like, if you had that going on, if you had large language model stuff built into Dwarf Fortress, it'd probably get even more insane and out of control. It's just like the craziness that's already happening within the game. Of just stuff is like, why is this dwarf acting this way? It's like, well, because it's based on this last 1,000 years of lore that they happen to be aware of that you didn't know about, and you just happen to click on the dwarf and read some stuff about them. You're like, what is happening? It's like you haven't been paying much attention to all the stuff that's going on in your game, apparently.
Yeah, although I think part of the thing with Dwarf Fortress, though, from what I understand anyway, is that it is fairly deterministic.
Yeah.
Like, dwarves do things, like, you can sort of drill down to all the motivations that a particular dwarf has and stuff, right? It doesn't have that sort of black box aspect that AI stuff sometimes does.
Yeah, that you're like, I'm not sure where it's pulling all this stuff from, so it feels like magic, but it's like, it's just because you don't really get the... Yeah.
I mean, Tomodachi Life had a lot of like kind of predetermined event stuff that it pulls from, and you have a little bit of control in the sense that they're generally kind of like a small mini game of like, for instance, confessions. So the thing of like confession happening during fireworks, that kind of anime trope. And if you don't help them do their timing right, they'll constantly try to confess when the fireworks are too loud for the confession to go through. So you can like make that relationship fail, or you can try to make it work out. There's one that's like them just having a normal conversation that if you fail on, the other person they're trying to confess to, like just as they're about to confess, will start being like, popcorn's really great, huh? Just like
useless things, yeah.
Just like, what about this? And like, it just completely wrecks the mood. Like, they're fun.
Anyway.
You should bring that game to Switch.
Tomodachi Life?
Yeah.
Roblox.
I don't know what they do now.
Well,
it's not good.
No,
it's not good.
I mean, it's not really Roblox's fault. This one, this is
That's true.
sub
That's
company.
true.
It just involves them this time.
This is
talking
a third
about,
party.
This is a company called GameFam. So issue is that basically a guy who was developing for GameFam, they do games and experiences within Roblox, which I believe they did the Sonic Roblox thing.
Yeah, they've developed a lot of big brand stuff to go into Roblox.
Do you
and
have
other
a
things.
property of some sort, like Sonic the Hedgehog, and you'd like it to be in Roblox?
Yes.
They're going to help you do that.
Yeah, and they've done a lot of properties for this kind of stuff, and Minecraft, and I think even Fortnite.
So basically, he started chatting a little bit with his coworkers about pay, and they realized that they were being paid very differently, which is no bueno.
Because he already wasn't making the kind of money he should have been making, and then found out everybody else is making even less.
And so he went to the CEO, approached him about bringing salaries to the market rate, and then the CEO was very unhappy about that he had talked to his coworkers about pay. And he was put on paid leave, suggesting it was time to give him. Suggesting it was to give him time to determine whether he wanted to be a team player or a problem for the company.
Oh.
And I don't get why. I don't understand why I don't understand how a person can start a company and not get that this isn't your own fucking kingdom, right? Like it's not you don't have a fiefdom, and these people who are working for you have to do whatever you say, and you can treat them however you want. I'm like, I think you have to understand that you have to approach everybody in like that more like you work here because you need to get paid to do things. I get that, and
So-
you have a problem with something, we need to talk about that.
Every time we bring up a company where bad things are happening, those are definitely people who think that those are their kingdoms.
So what happened, Paul?
As some folks in chat pointed out, that is illegal. And so the DeBoer, the guy who Joshua DeBoer is the guy who has been dealing with this, took up the issue with the National Labor Relations Board, and he alleged that they retaliated against him for discussing pay with his coworkers. They settled with him, agreeing to pay him $5,000 in unpaid bonuses. And they also agreed to post notice and send an email to GameFam workers of their rights. I hope that this isn't any editorializing by Polygon, and this is, but the Polygon story says that what the email reads is in all caps, "We will not tell you that it is toxic or poisonous to the company if you talk to coworkers about
That's
pay."
a real. There's no way that's not a real email. That's the kind of stuff that gets sent out.
It's so funny because it sounded so sarcastic.
I know. It's like that's the like you are perfectly within your rights.
Yeah.
To talk about pay.
Yep. Yeah, we're saying the right thing here, but you know what the message is, right?
Legally, these are the words we were told to say.
Yeah, God. I mean, if, they retaliate again against somebody else. And what's funny, I mean, in a way, the company gets off pretty light because all they had to do was pay the unpaid bonuses, things that they were basically owing to this person anyway. There didn't seem to be any sort of other repercussions on behalf of the Labor Relations Board.
I mean, I have no, Roblox has its own history of all sorts of payment stuff that illustrates that they're doing all sorts of scummy things.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, in this case, I feel like pulling in Roblox into the story is a little bit just like nobody will know who this company is, so let's put Roblox in.
Yeah.
I mean,
This is technically not really Roblox's fault unless you could see that they are like fostering a environment in which this kind of thing is okay.
Yeah, the kind of idea that it's like you should content farm this shit because that's what we're doing.
So yeah, Roblox has a lot of things that they should be apologized for. This is probably not one of them.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And that's just kind of where it's at. It's like, that's what's happened, and I'm sure... But now that people know the name of the company, I'm sure they'll be keeping an eye out for, like, oh, who developed this content? Oh, I see.
The company's been, GameFam's been pretty tight-lipped about this stuff.
Yeah.
It is... I can definitely see this as one of those things where, if you're Sega making a Sonic's 30th anniversary thing for Roblox or whatever, you're dealing with these big brands and stuff. Any kind of suggestion that it's they don't want they're not going to Sega or whatever doesn't want to take on any heat that they've got.
It's very,
I'm sure there's a lot of people making things for Roblox.
Yeah,
it's no skin off them if they might jump to somebody else.
Yeah.
If all else is equal and one company has got some bad press and another company doesn't.
Yeah.
That your job as one of these places that makes these brand deals is to kind of be invisible.
Yeah. And I mean, that's also an important point, is that to me, this story is invisible. I would never have known this would have happened. I would have probably skipped over it if I was reading Ars Technica or whatever. If this happened to be popped onto Ars Technica, I probably would have skipped over it even there. And, I would have probably not known or cared about any of these things happening. I don't play Roblox or Minecraft or Fortnite, so I'd never probably run into anything that GameFan is making. I would have no awareness that any of this happens, and I imagine for the most part, most people in our audience is probably in the same place.
I will tell you that even though this article has come out, that this is a story that we are even talking about, that the majority of people who are playing Roblox or any of the properties that are associated with that company do not read the news, do not keep up on the news, will not know, will not care.
They're there to consume the Sonic and the Warner Brothers content.
What has happened here is a terrible thing that will probably just continue.
Yeah. Now, the more the things happen, the more those stories, maybe if this stuff happens again in the company, then maybe more of those stories bubble up into the gaming news and whatnot. But even then, who's reading that gaming news and who is going to be aware of it? I don't know if 10-year-olds go to Polygon to find out all the bad stuff's going on in Roblox, right? So if they're still there and they're still technically the market, this is so cynical and it's kind of depressing. And I hate having to say all this, but it's kind of where we're at there too.
So there's one story here that it's a little bit twisty, and it turns out to be only very peripherally related to video games.
Oh, okay.
So we'll maybe, I don't know how long we have spent on it, but
all right.
So there's a thing that happened. There's a story that broke earlier in the week that important military secrets had been leaked on a Minecraft Discord.
Yes.
Including...
We're not allowed to go to forums anymore.
Including stuff about the
armament preparations
troop placements in the Ukraine and various stuff like that. Very bad stuff. Minecraft, not Warframe, not War Thunder. Yeah. It was leaked on a Minecraft server. And so, there was, aside from the thing about it being, there's a question about whether it was real classified documents.
Yeah.
Which it appears to be that they were real classified documents, although apparently it has been quickly, what's great about this is that there have been quickly various different versions of these classified documents have been starting to crop up everywhere.
Interesting.
Some which show the U.S. in a better state, some which show Russia in a better state, some which show...
So which one's real?
So there's an interesting kind of diffusion of truth that happens.
Yeah.
But anyway, What has become clear though is this is not actually a Minecraft thing.
Nope.
It's not like somebody was like, "Hey, I want to get my my Minecraft map of the Russian-Ukraine conflict accurate.
Yes.
So I'm going to leak important documents."
Yeah.
This was leaked onto this Minecraft server from another Discord server,
Right.
which apparently got it from another Discord server. That was like the server. It was like a 25-person server that was a. It was like they were just like a bunch of friends basically, or a group of people
Who all played together, yeah.
who had met their mutual like for a particular YouTube channel, and they hung out a bunch and stuff. And one of them worked for the military, and was sort of basically appears to be just like, hey guys, check out this awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Sort of clout chasing kind of behavior. And showing off these like, hey, I bet this is going to happen. And then like 2 days later it happens.
Yes.
And they're like, wow, how you're so good at predicting this.
How do you have all this information?
And
I'm
then,
about to not have it ever again.
yeah. And so then it gets spread farther and farther and farther. So is this more just like somebody being, like the Minecraft connection is tangential at best.
Yes.
It just happens to be the place where sort of the mainstream media kind of, or not mainstream media even, but the enthusiast media
yeah.
first sort of found out about it. But then they traced it back, and this guy is currently under investigation by the FBI. This is serious. They know who it is. They found him. They did it. They grabbed him.
Yeah. They're figuring this out. Looks like he was a member of the Air National Guard, specifically, which is a very, you wouldn't expect that would be the link by which that would come out. He was a very, and according to what I understand, based on somebody who apparently is in the Air National Guard, that I saw today, saying that, he's not even been in the Air National Guard that long. Yeah.
Also, not to get into it too much, but the Kotaku article that was updated this morning about all the sort of new information about how far it went back, the title of which is "The Big Discord Military Secrets Leaker Was, Surprise, a Racist."
Yes.
Oh no.
Because the apparently sharing racist anti-Semitic memes was the main thing that this Discord server was used for.
So there's lots of like...
So, yeah.
You have to know an awful lot about why all this stuff is kind of tied in and related, and that's not the topic for Chill Points.
But I'll tell you what is a topic for Chill Point.
Yes, please.
Let's end on a fun topic.
All right.
An elderly couple has won the competition in a what is the actual name of it? It
was a Wii bowling.
A Wii bowling tournament in France.
Yeah.
A couple, Janine, who is 96, and Gilbert, who is 85.
Yep.
Competed representing their retirement home.
I love that.
And they won.
Can we show the video? Because you're not going to believe this video. The first one is my favorite. Yeah.
Let me full screen this.
Okay.
Remember.
So here they are at the Gamers Assembly. So it's just bowling, right? Like
Wii bowling. Yeah.
That's what it is. It's Wii bowling. But the two of them are behind us and bowl and
pow.
And look at that crowd.
This is like not a small tournament.
No.
This is thousands of people that showed up to watch this esports thing. And this is probably just one of the events, but it's the finals and they won.
Yeah, it's great.
I am willing to go out on a limb and say that is the largest Wii bowling tournament I have ever
yeah, right?
ever seen.
It really catches you off guard. You're not expecting like a huge eruption of people to be.
Because I was thinking, oh, it'll be like GDQ, right? It'll be like 150 people in the audience if there's an audience or anything. They're up there kind of on a stage doing a thing. But it's just like bam, and the crowd pops, and if you could hear the audio, it's just nuts. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's the kind of this is the esports I need. Apparently, I didn't know that's what I needed, but I need to watch old people play Wii bowling, like that kind of style of thing.
I remember playing Wii bowling back in it was one of those things with because of how the Wii controller worked.
Yeah,
it was one of those things where and it was not the instructions for it weren't incredibly detailed.
right.
And so there was almost like one of those, you got into that schoolyard, like old school kind of schoolyard secrets thing.
Yes.
Because there'd be because nobody, this was a launch title for the Wii.
Yes.
And nobody really knew how sensitive the Wiimote was and what kinds of movements it could track. We now know that it actually was very not sensitive, and it could only track certain types of movements.
Yeah.
And if you weren't pointing it at the screen, it wasn't getting stuff. But when it first came out, I remember there was a lot of you got to do this twisting move.
The 3-axis accelerometer
stuff.
does make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so and you would be like, I feel like these things I'm doing is making a difference, but maybe not. I don't you didn't quite know what aspect of it's does my stance matter? Yeah. Can you tell?
It's funny to me because so I got a Wii for Christmas launch year.
Yeah, I bet these people who won this have it's the same as any esports person. They probably know, down to the
exactly how much
the
they
absolute
have to...
precision.
Yeah, and so when I got my Wii for Christmas for launch year, my grandparents came over and played it because I had it hooked up to the TV. It's I want to show you what this is because I think you'll think this is interesting. And I showed them golf, and we bowled. Actually, all of us, I put Mii's in the system for all of them, and then we all bowled, and they had a great time to the point where. My nan, my grandmother, she thought this is really neat, so she bought a Wii for my parents, which they played it a bit, but not a lot. I think they maybe used about 3 or 4 times or whatever. They didn't use it a lot. But that idea of, and then I showed to my other set of grandparents, and we played a round of bowling, and they thought it was really cool. But of course it had that kind of, this is a toy aspect, right? It's a video game, but really it is just a toy, which I'm that's kind of what they aimed
really
for.
We're going for,
right?
I remember,
and they wanted all people from all generations to play
convention parties and stuff. Wii bowling and boxing each other.
Yeah,
were the two that were the popular ones to do.
That's what you wanted to do, right? You wanted to,
because it's fun to watching the boxing because it's a 2-player thing, but you're both facing the same way. But you watch 2 people kind of trying to punch each other while standing next to each other.
Which was safer than turning and facing each other and trying to punch each other.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, that was a game where it was again, you're sort of figuring out
what are these movements? And
what it's does me punching faster actually make a difference on the screen, or is it just how I do it?
Yeah. But I love that it's even to this day. That would have mean that because the Wii is what about when did it come out again? 2008, 2007. Whenever it came out, I'm well, okay, we can assume that it's 15 years old, older than that, almost 20 years old. It's just so these people who are playing it now would have been in their 60s and 70s, and they're still playing it, and they still want to play it, right? It's just wow.
I mean, the Wii still gets.
They were learning the sword while we were.
people make fun of Just Dance for still coming out on the Wii.
Yeah.
When the Switch was out.
Right. Right.
But a Wii was still
the
a
installed
cheap
base.
way to get a thing like that and to have that work.
Yeah.
And now.
And it ended up being easy for people to understand. So.
And now we have the Switch, and everyone keeps asking where's Switch 2, and when really they should just be watching the new Zelda trailer and wondering why a month is so long. This month is going to be so long.
It's going to be very long.
I love you're saying your grandparents bought a Wii for your parents.
Yes.
which Spurious in the chat says, buying a Wii for your kids is not that uncommon.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, actually, that's all the news I have. Except, I mean, there is Zelda. Is there what was your favorite new thing that was revealed in the latest? Because the final trailer for the new Zelda game just came out.
Thing?
Yeah.
Oh.
Tense.
B just very excited about the appearance of Tense.
Yeah.
Yeah. B's very tense.
Very into tense.
Intense.
There's a very short little, there's so many really neat things. There's a fun little, clip moment where there is a, I can't remember the name of the rock monsters.
Like a stone
talus.
Yeah.
With a fort essentially built on top of it with bokoblins coming down the street, and Link is on top of a giant box structure on wheels that he's going at it with this arm that has something attached to it.
Very battle bots.
It's very like, I'm going to attack this thing with a Roomba and a knife.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I'm so excited for this game.
There are many emotions that can be had by watching the trailer, because you're like,
There's this really cool looking like he's falling through a thing full of lasers, but he's got some sort of flight suit that clearly
I didn't even
down
look
stuff.
at that.
It all happens so quickly. There's the rocket on his arm.
Yeah.
He has just a rocket on his arm, and he just blasts off into the space. It's just, there's so much. It's super cool looking.
I don't remember that power up from Link to the Past.
I know, right?
I just want this game out already.
All right. Wow. That's
I'm going
very,
to go.
that's
I'm
very
going
exciting.
to May 12th is going to happen. I'm going to go away, Paul.
All right. So just keep that in mind. YouTube uploads might slow down a little.
Just a little.
After May 12th. But there's a good reason for that. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us on ChillPoint. If you haven't watched the episode of Checkpoint that we were talking about, you can hear all the stuff that we talked about at the beginning of the episode, but more funny and condensed and well written. And that it will be, if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be probably near this video on our LRRVG channel. Or you can check out all our other stuff at LRRTT for tabletop stuff, or Loading Ready Run for our sketches and all other stuff, and Loading Ready Live for all the VODs for other things.
Mm-hmm. Or LRMTG for Magic.
It's LRRMTG for Magic. And I want to thank everybody for supporting us on Patreon. And also, of course, we're got just a couple more days on our special Moonbase Mark 6 merchandise on our store.loadingreadyrun.com.
Go look for the Welcome Aboard collection, or you can go to lrr.cc/mkvi, which is Mark 6.
Yeah. So pre-orders are closing on Sunday. So get in while the getting's good. There's been re-ups of some of the t-shirts and things. So if you were waiting for that to be back in stock before you ordered, now's the time.
Yeah.
Without further ado,
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
And we'll talk to y'all later.